Okay, the collaboration series is back, and today I have a special guest. I've got Jay Arbizu. I hope I say that right. I probably totally annihilated his name, but he's here, and I can't wait to hear his journey with eXp. But as we know, first things first, here we go.
This is Honey Badger Nation,
where real estate agents from around the globe come together
to grow, collaborate,
and expand their business.
Where we take our individual fires and put them together and make one big fire.
This is the Honey Badger Nation.
There we go. We got you on there. Now you have to tell me, did I totally annihilate your name?
No, you nailed it. So,
yay!
Yeah.
I'm like, I probably should have asked that first, and then I got in the middle of it, and I thought, well, I guess we'll just go with it.
Yeah, no worries at all. It's been through the ringer with way. I guess it looks scarier than it is, right?
Absolutely. I know that, my name's Tamra, and it can get annihilated all kinds of ways. And my last name is Simons, and everyone calls me a Simmons.
Right. Yeah.
And I can tell you I'm definitely not as fit as like Richard Simmons. So it's got to be a Simons. So I appreciate you being here with me today. And, you've kind of got a really cool story. So why don't we start with, how you got into real estate?
Okay. Well, so I got into real estate. I was coming out of the Air Force off of active duty, and I was going back to school. So I went back and finished school, and I didn't really have that much more to finish. So I got done, and I still had some GI Bill left, and I got an English literature degree just because I enjoyed the classes. And, then I got done with that and said, well, I know I don't want to teach English literature. And so, what am I going to really do with this degree? And so opportunity opened up, and I got into an MBA program and I was going to get a business degree because I'd always had somewhere in the back of my mind, hey, I'd like to get into business. I didn't know what that was, what that meant, what business. And through that first year in that program, we were doing some project, and I just kept learning about real estate and stumbling onto real estate. And then it kind of just dawned on me that, and I'm sure everybody else has come to this realization one way or another to get into real estate. But I was like, okay, so I can make my own money, be my own boss, set my own schedule, all those kinds of, cool things. And I was like, oh, this sounds like a perfect opportunity, right? Especially coming out of the military, I wanted to never have to have an alarm clock again if I, or somebody else waking me up on their schedule. So anyway, yeah, that's how I kind of got into it. And so then I started studying a little, like outside of the business a little bit more, and then decided, okay, I'm going to go for it, and jumped into at the time I was back home in San Antonio, and we have San Antonio College that had a real estate program that I could use the GI Bill to continue to get my real estate classes. So I did that, and that's how I kind of got into real estate and got the whole thing started, really.
What a journey. But, you still ended up in business.
Right.
So you took and got into real estate, and obviously that was, fairly successful. And it sounds like you even got into having your own brokerage.
Yes, I did have my partner and girlfriend and everything. Elise is the other half of the scenario, but she's not with me right now because I actually just came from there was a eXp event with Jason Gessing and Brent Gove up in Austin, Texas. I'm heading back to San Antonio now, but anyway, so she'd gotten her real estate license as well, and we had opened a brokerage. And we started running our own brokerage. We did that for about 10 years, actually, before we came to eXp. And I can just, I guess I don't know how quickly, but I can tell you that I got into the brokerage side of it initially to be we're thinking, long term, we liked selling real estate. We enjoyed it, all that kind of stuff. But like, hey, someday we might want to stop, slow down, retire, whatever that looks like. And so we needed to build, I was thinking of a business where, we'd have X amount of agents. I didn't know what that number was back then, but we'd have some agents working for our brokerage, and, we'd do what we could to keep them happy and build that rapport and do all these great things. And then at some point when we're ready to do that, the agents will still be selling houses and we'll still be making money as the brokers. And that would kind of be our retirement plan. And then, I got into it and suddenly realized that is not really, that's really not how it works. Because, I guess what I learned was that agent retention is a tough thing in terms of, you bring an agent either from scratch or wherever they're at, you train them, give them your resources, that kind of thing. And then eventually the good ones are going to want to do what you're doing, right? They're going to want to leverage themselves. They're going to want to start their own team, their own brokerage, whatever that is. And that means that, I've got to start over every so many years. Right. And just when they're getting good is when I've got to reset the schedule. and, we did that enough times, 2-3 times where I was like, something's wrong with that. And I started digging into it, just realized it was agent retention. And at some point I just laid all the math out and just kind of forecasted. And I was like, well, there's no way that I can get to, in my figuring, it was going to be a minimum of 80 agents to bring in what we wanted it. And I didn't think my picture was that big, right? Like I was just saying, hey, if we could make about $10,000 a month from our brokerage, right, without us having to sell anything, to me, that would be a success. Right. And so I calculated somewhere around 80 plus agents. Right. And then when I started doing that math, I'm like, well, now all of a sudden that means I got to put up, somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 a month to support those 80 agents. And now I'm not really selling houses, which is, we still enjoy working with our clients and stuff, but we're really more managing. And so as I started following that path just on paper, I was like, I'm just not comfortable putting up, $40,000 a month to get 10 back. Right. And what if the market shifts?
That's a hard job. Being a broker is a hard job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard to know exactly what you're doing in order to keep the agents happy, because that can change by the day. And so you never know who's really going to stay and who's going to move on to bigger and better things. Right.
And I think, and I think that's where, where eXp kind of nailed that value proposition, which was they solved the agent retention problem because there's nowhere to move up. If you start out day one, owning the company, building your own kind of brokerage within the brokerage, and then still getting to sell houses. Right. So
right.
So to me, that was when I saw it, I guess I was ready for it. Right. And
well, as they say, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And it's so true. It's so true. So how did you get introduced to eXp?
So that's a funny enough story, right? So we had, I'm sure in the eXp world, you've heard of Pat Hayes. He's not my direct sponsor, but when he had moved to eXp, him and another agent that he was helping, attract at that point, they'd come to an open house that Elise and I were having down at these condos downtown. We used to live in a condo downtown, and we were hosting an open house there because we tended to do quite a bit of business there back then. And they came over on a Friday. We had a broker's open on Saturday. We were doing the open house, and they came in and started asking us some questions and nice unit, blah, blah, blah. How long you been in business? And we tell them, and, it's, what's the HOA, blah, blah, blah. And, how many units do you sell a year? And, this went on. And so 15 or 20 minutes, they got our card, we got their card, they left. And Elise and I looked at each other and says, did it sound like we just got interviewed for something? And we just kind of joked and blew it off. And about a week later, I got a call from that other agent, and she invited me to go listen to a thing about lead generation. And honestly, the only reason I went was because, I figured they were nice enough to come to our open house. I'll go over there and listen to their thing. And I was like, I'm not buying anything. I don't want anything. I'm just, we do our thing with repeats and referrals, and but I'm gonna be nice because they were nice. And that was my whole chip on my shoulder when I went in. And this was back in the day, so this was 2016, and Glenn was rolling around the country in an RV giving these presentations on how to generate leads online. And so the first that I heard about eXp was from Glenn Sanford, and he was they talked about lead gen, and it led back to KV Core, and that's when I was like, oh, they're going to try to get me to buy this KV Core system. And then they go on, and it sounded really good, that all the things it could do. And then finally Glenn said, well, if you want to learn how to get this thing for free, stick around for another 30 minutes and we're going to show you. And I said, oh, God. Okay, so for free, I'll stick around and hear what it is. And that was the eXp presentation. And, since probably that night, I've had eXp insomnia ever since, right? Like seeing the numbers in my head and what could be and what could happen and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right with you there, because I had actually seen eXp several times before I went, okay, this is definitely the direction that I want to go. I want
Right.
that exit strategy. And that, eXp has that perfect model for that.
Right. I think
So you've been in now 6 years as of April 1st. And how does that picture look since you've been with eXp? How did that change your whole business?
it's like night and day in terms of, I don't know how to put it, but it's so I played a lot of sports growing up and stuff like that. But when you kind of get into the zone and everything slows down around you and the game becomes simpler or whatever, you know what I mean? Like you can see it all happening right before it happens or whatever. And that's what eXp has been like, honestly, because it's like, now we've got the stock and we're sitting on thousands of shares, and now we've got rev share, which is a great size group, and we get it, we've gotten a check every month for at least, I think the second or third month we joined, we got our first rev share check, and it was a small check, but it was enough to pay our MLS dues for that quarter, and we haven't looked back since. And then the production side of our business is really, it's really about the same. We haven't pushed ourselves there, and in some levels we've become comfortable with that. But that's also because we know that it's not about one sale, one chunk of money, one sale, one chunk of money for us anymore. It's that's our income. But what we're building alongside of that with the stock and the rev share, that's our exit.
Yeah.
At least that's the way we see it. And like I said, so it just has slowed everything down. One of the huge things that I always like to mention that I was not expecting was the culture. I mean, I'd come from a military background. I'd come from like sports, and when that's who I would hang out with on the weekends. That's who we knew. We knew their kids and their parents and their wives and their girlfriends and husbands and everything like that, because we really knew them outside of just the military or just the sport that we were playing, right? Which for me is rugby, really. But so with eXp, that culture, I mean, for the first year, I did a horrible job of plugging in because we're like, okay, we're attached to this great vehicle now. Let me go do my thing so we can build it. And that wasn't the way to do it, right? And so come back about a year later, and Pat is killing it, and he's got people all over the place. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, well, come, join, come to the things we're doing and get plugged in. So I started plugging in, and, next thing you know, like we can't, everybody in those groups now is our friends. We spend, Christmases and, birthdays and all that stuff with all of our eXp friends and stuff like that now. And so the culture is something I never expected to have. I thought the business model is good and that looks like it'll work and blah, blah, blah. But just the friendships that have come along the way, that's been huge. And that just like a bonus, really.
I think that's the piece to eXp that's missed a lot, is this huge collaboration, because
Right.
Real estate is so competitive. You're used to holding those secrets to your sleeve, and And here, everyone's
Exactly.
so willing to share. How can we help you? I mean, everyone's willing to, reach down and help you up the ladder. And that's not something that you hear of in real estate, which is, what I find so unique about eXp.
Right. I mean, it's been great, and like you said, it's no the. I mean, the model itself lends to that because nobody's going to treat your business like you, but if we all own it, I'm going to treat your business as good as I'm going to treat mine because we
Right.
own it together, and that really spills over into the culture and the collaboration and all those things. Yeah, I think that's one of the brilliant but under I guess maybe undervalued portions of the company from people that are outside looking in. People
Mhm.
inside, I think, get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is one thing that you would tell, say, maybe a new agent that's looking to get into a, brokerage right after they pass their exam? What is something that you would tell them?
So I guess that the tough love side, right? Because is hey, if you're a new agent, expect to work hard, um, but you can build it out to where you don't have to work hard forever, right? And not just because of EXP, but at any brokerage. And I think a lot of uh, realtors get away from that idea of customer retention and that lifetime value of a customer, and just the idea of taking good care of somebody before, during, and after. And that NAR has that stat that like 90% of consumers or clients say they would use their same realtor again, but only like 10% do. And I think
Mhm.
that gap is on us, the realtor, to stay in front of them and top of mind with them. It's not for our clients to remember us, right? It's for us to stay in front of them. And I think that gap gets missed so much, but I think it's so valuable in terms of, repeat referral business. Now you're entering their circle of friends, not just your circle, right? So your network is expanded. And then it just changes the way business works when, you've got people calling you because their sister bought a house from you and they already kind of trust you and like you, right? Versus me having to take a cold call or a online lead and develop that trust and then get them to the point and then bring them through that whole cycle. So what I would say is start that database early and nurture it from the beginning, because it's the longer you let that go, the tougher it is to stop and put together, a list. And it doesn't need to be extensive. Name, address, phone number, email, and maybe their birthday, and you can, you know, that's enough to be in front of somebody at least once a month.
Yeah, that's something I learned after being in the business for a lot longer than right out of the gate. So,
Yeah,
and I had one of my mentors told me, he's like, one client that you help can bring you 5 new clients over the next 5 to 10 years.
right. Oh
And
yeah,
it took me a minute to actually catch that, but I wish I would have caught it sooner.
yeah, and I feel like that's in every other business. That's 101, right? Like, if somebody comes into your restaurant, you give them a coupon to come back, or you give them a reason to come back, right? Get a free dessert or whatever. But they understand the value of having one customer and generating more from that. But in real estate, somehow we, as a whole group of realtors, right, we tend to overlook that, that the value of, hey, bringing them back and working with their friends and family, because it's so much easier too, in terms of, you're not I don't know how to put it in, but you're already kind of you're the trusted advisor almost instantly when you've already helped their friend or their family member, versus trying to rebuild that bridge with every customer and client that you meet.
Oh, absolutely. I think our egos get in the way, when we get and become realtors. I think we have a tendency to let our ego flow instead of, reeling that in and, not putting it so out there, like, oh, well, I used them once, they're going to come back, and not realize that, well, no, if they'll forget your name,
Right.
And then you'll look on there and go, wait a second, I sold that house and they just sold it again.
Yeah.
And I wasn't the agent.
Well, yeah, somebody taught me that one time too. So like real quick in the next 5 seconds, tell me your favorite toothpaste, your top favorite brands of toothpaste.
Oh,
Yeah, just a quick quiz.
oh, wow. Colgate.
Right. So that's your brand, right? And so essentially there's, I don't know, hundreds of toothpaste brands out there, right? But Colgate occupies the number one spot in your mind. So when somebody says, hey, what toothpaste should I buy? You're going to say Colgate. You might have two brands in your mind. Most people in 5 or 10 seconds can't come up with three, whether it's like chips or sodas or toothpaste or whatever it is. And that's the same thing we got to do as realtors is we got to occupy one or two in everybody, or in at least our circle's mind, right? So when somebody asks them about real estate, they're saying our name versus whoever else's, and that's the trick, right? And you do that by providing good service, obviously, but also by staying in front of them, in that 5 years between when they bought and they're going to sell again.
That's a great analogy. And that totally took me off guard. I was like, toothpaste?
No, yeah. And somebody had showed me that one time, and it just totally hit me like boom. Oh yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you think about it. I mean, somebody comes to you and they're like, where's your favorite Italian restaurant? And the first thing you're like, oh, we always eat here.
Right.
And it really makes total sense to go, well, wait a second, I need to present myself that way.
Right.
So that I'm always in the forefront of their mind if they're ever asked.
Yeah, you want to be one or two in there, right? And then, like I said, once you get to 3, 4, 5, or 100, you're out of the picture, right?
Yeah, for sure. They've totally forgot about you at that point.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take too much time out of your day because I know you're traveling, but you have to tell me one thing that you learned at wasn't it the Bills conference that you were at?
Well, yeah, I guess it's more like a road show. So they're, doing different discussions on different things, but so one of the biggest things that I learned that I feel is a strong takeaway was that I guess being more authentic and being less what you think people want to see in a realtor or in an agent or whatever the job is. And one of the guys was talking about YouTube videos and how he gave examples of how he talks and what he does and everything, and I just thought that was pretty awesome. And I didn't realize, I think that's one of the highlights of our repeat referral business is most of those people we see outside of real estate routinely anyway. So it's really easy to be authentic. And I think that's why we do so well within our sphere already, right? Because we already are authentic with them. So it's easy to translate that into business. But then, spreading that to the outside world as far as, doing YouTube videos or doing podcasts or a blog or whatever it is, to be more authentically you, right? Because that's going to separate you more than trying to blend in with the masses of, hey, we all say this, and this, and, this is our answer for that. Then that's not the way it works, right? People are looking for why you're different and why you're unique.
Well, and I think that's how you find your perfect client per se is, you're going to attract, the person that, is like, oh, I like, that style, or I like the way they talk about this or that. And I can kind of connect with that. But I think, we get away from being our own selves and we think that the public wants us to be a certain way when in all reality, they just want to see the real you.
Right. Or like in my case, and I think other people are as well, you try to become all things to all people. So you want to be, a good, rates guy when you're talking with somebody who wants to know the numbers, and you want to be a good, school district guy when schools are really important and you want to be whatever it is versus, hey, I don't really know that much about the schools, but I can tell you about this, that, and the other. I can tell you the proximity to, I'm like, again, I know how far away most places are from the local rugby pitch just because I've been around it so long. Right.
And that's a pretty rough game. I've actually watched one rugby game and I thought, wow, now that's a physical sport.
Yeah, you might not be able to see it on camera, but my nose isn't as straight as it used to be. So.
But you love the game, right?
Oh yeah, it's a blast. I've been involved with that for probably going on 20 years at this point.
Oh wow, that's kind of cool. Well, I will let you get on about your day, but I want to thank you again for taking the time. I think you've shared a lot of great knowledge with my audience.
Well, thank you too, Tamra. Thank you for inviting me on. And yeah, I appreciate it and glad to be here.
Well, you have a safe trip home.
All right. Thank you. And hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.